The one album within that legendary Led Zeppelin studio discography which could be claimed as a stab at progressive rock, potentially inspired by the likes of Yes and or Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I had gotten into Led Zeppelin's music prior to becoming a fan of progressive rock, Yes, Rush, King Crimson, et al. I was into Pink Floyd fairly early, but I guess that's a bit different. That's more common, obviously. And even before that, prophesizing that, when I got into the Led Zeppelin albums, I had friends at school, two friends in particular during my high school who were mad on Led Zeppelin, guitarists, love Led Zeppelin to bits. And I'm like, well, I got to get some of this. They're getting so high off of Led Zeppelin, I got to explore some Led Zeppelin. I was already into Queen, and they also liked the Beatles, and I was very familiar with the Beatles and very much liked the Beatles. So I figured, yeah, Led Zeppelin couldn't hurt either. And oh boy, it did not hurt at all. Oh, baby. But to me, getting into those albums, it seemed just kind of obvious that Houses of the Holy was the best of them. And when I expressed this opinion to my friends, they just kind of, they go, oh, okay, interesting. I mean, clearly, right? What are you talking about? It's clearly the best of them. What? Yeah, Four's brilliant, but come on, House of the Holy, the track list, come on, the production was, you guys are guitarists, all those textures, that's insane. The Prophets of Led Zeppelin 4, which was intended to be a magnum opus in and of itself, because they thought it was going to be a massive flop, considering how Free had been a bit of a misfire commercially and critically. Free's fantastic, don't get me wrong, but it was what it was at the time. 4 was this phenomenal moment of the last stab at anything, and it was one of the great masterpieces of all recorded music. I think everyone thinks that's kind of a cliche to say at this point. The Eric Davis book is on that album. It's phenomenal, by the way. I've done the audiobook on that. It's not a self-promotion. Get the book on Book Depository. Don't even listen to my audiobook if you don't want to. Get the book instead. Pay Eric Davis. Anyway. And then the Prophets of Led Zeppelin 4, that immaculate masterpiece, was funneled into an even more immaculate masterpiece, in my opinion. A lot of people disagree. Well, not aggressively disagree, I would imagine, but fairly politely, hopefully. The Led Zeppelin 4 is so precious to so many people. It's not that they don't love Houses of the Holy, it's just Led Zeppelin 4 means so much to them. Me getting into the albums that are all around the same time may have something to do with this, but Houses of the Holy always just stuck out to me as the most interesting, evocative, and re-listenable of the Led Zeppelin albums. And it seems always as obvious as ever when I go through the album and the track list plays out. Let's go through this, shall we? And let's do this very carefully without thinking of the album art, because the album art is possibly what is making me consider this a progressive rock album. Now, my appreciation for the album has always been the same, regardless of the artwork. Although, when I listen to it again and it resembles the album art of the prog bands I like, ELP, Yes, Genesis, whatever you want to name, Gentle Giant. Although it's a bit more risque and it may get this video, strike demonetized or whatever. Like, it is what it is. It's meant to be like Childhood's End from Arthur C. Clarke. Sure, I guess. So as you go through the track listing, you want to be sure that if it's not progressive rock that it resembles, what it does resemble. What is it that is evocative about Houses of the Holy? It's not necessarily that they were mimicking Yes or ELP, or is it? That's what we'll find out. Take, for example, the Rubber Soul album art has really driven home the idea that it's an outdoorsy, rustic album. Although if we imagine that there is no album art, what we'll find that, oh my god, Rubber Soul really is a folksy, outdoorsy, rustic sort of album. We take it for granted because of the album art. When you actually listen to the album, you hear it more than ever, because you're not necessarily thinking that it's going to be that, and just it's really catching you by surprise in a respect. So that's Rubber Soul, and it's something I neglected to mention in the previous video on Rubber Soul. That's kind of why I'm mentioning it now. Anyway, now let's go on to the track list, shall we? You can't deny the opening track. The song remains the same. They even named their film after it. Well, what does that tell you? You can't deny the Rain song. That's one of the most impressive pieces they've ever accomplished. They're really trying to show off there. And you can't deny Over the Hills and Far Away. Top 10 or 5 Zeppelin, in my opinion, I think, without a doubt. phenomenal song, one of the most moving pieces of rock music ever recorded. And then we have a track which some may deny, The Crunge. I like The Crunge, I don't care. It's a fun track, it's funky, it's a bit of bounce, it shows Led Zeppelin with a bit of variety, and with the chops to pull it off, I think. Dancing Days is solid Zeppelin. When I was listening to it this time, it reminded me of something I've thought before, but it makes me think of Zeppelin trying to do a track that sounds like something from Rolling Stones circa Sticky Fingers. I wonder if anyone else will agree or disagree with that. Jamaica is controversial, but I don't care. I think they really nailed it, actually. No Quarter. Then The Ocean is really great. What a wonderful way to close off this magnificent track list. What an experience. I feel as though that up to this point, this has to be far and away the finest Led Zeppelin track list on an LP. Much as I felt as though Rubber Soul had almost certainly the best collection of Beatles tracks up to that point. No, certainly, compared to each of the first 5, though I consider Hard Day's Night to be fantastic, it is ultimately no Rubber Soul, so... And Houses of the Holy I consider the most overall triumphant, beautiful, evocative, and proud LP in the Led Zeppelin studio discography. One of my absolute favourite albums of all time, and I think a tremendous justification for the album as an art form in general. But wait, is it really progressive rock or inspired by progressive rock? Here's how we're going to answer that question. We're going to imagine that this is the new release from a band that had been a progressive rock band. Do we consider they changing their sound on this album? Song remains the same? No. I mean, well, in the sense that, yes, it is a prog or proggy song. Rain Song? Yeah, we could imagine that as a second track on a progressive rock album. You know, I Talk to the Wind, and You and I. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Over the Hills and Far Away? Yep, we can imagine that in a progressive rock album. The Crunge is... The Crunge is one of those moments where progressive rock fans would lose their minds and riot if they ever played it live. This is not an indication of any prog. Dancing Days, as I said earlier, is closer to something from the Rolling Stones. Jamaica, kind of a reggae track. Not really proggy. No Quarter. This is as proggy as Led Zeppelin ever got, more or less, except for maybe some of the tracks on Presence. In The Ocean, this sounds like, if we imagine this is a progressive rock album from a progressive rock band, an established progressive rock band, we find ourselves quite surprised that they closed the album on a hard rock number. But for Led Zeppelin, this is part of the course, really. So what do we have? Led Zeppelin taking stabs at a progressive rock-inspired sound on an album where they're demonstrating their versatility as recording artists. So progressive rock? No. Proggy.